But there's a little sequel to this story that I'm going to start with. And it first appeared in the Washington Post about 6 weeks ago. And I got a lot of email after from people saying, it's wonderful that you were able to talk about this issue. You were brave. A lot of people came out of various closets as well. And then I got this email from a Marine captain in Afghanistan who was on his third deployment, and he thanked me also, and we started talking about fear and how I had overcome the fear of telling the story, and I asked him about the fear of being overseas, which seemed to be a much larger fear to me. And we kind of continued this relationship via email. And he was married and a couple of years and identified as straight, and I thought, I wonder what's going on with this guy. And sometimes people write to me, and it's kind of a way for them to come out as gay. And then he wrote and said, well, you know, everyone has a closet. So I thought, well, that's my opening to ask him, you know, what's your closet? And so he wrote back, and he said, well, I got married 2 years ago to a wonderful woman. She's a Christian. And I've never told her that I'm an atheist. And that was his secret. And he went on over the next couple of weeks to tell her via Skype, and things went well. But it brought home to me that, you know, we're talking about a lot of different closets and secrets today, about transitioning, about being gay, you know, about death row, and I think all of us actually have something in common here today, which is we all have our own form of some closet. And I think any question that is hard to put to someone else kind of defines what that closet is. So that's kind of what I've learned after having written this piece. And so this is an adaptation of the essay I wrote in the Post, and it's called My True Story. I woke up last month to find someone had slipped a novel into my mail slot. It was called The Last First Day by Carrie Brown. The text on the dust jacket got my attention. Ruth, the protagonist, now in her, quote, twilight, looks back on a harrowing childhood and the unaccountable love and happiness that emerged from it. I love nasty, crappy romance novels, so it snagged me. I just jumped in, but near the end of the book, I got to this line. If I can't ever tell anyone the true story, then no one will ever know me. And I stopped, and I thought this book was really worth it for that line. And as it turned out, I happened to be writing an essay at the same time about my life and the self-blame I had long carried about having had cancer. And I stopped in that writing, snagged in the very same way as when I had come to Ruth's admonition. If I can't ever tell anyone the true story, then no one will ever know me. And I was 56. So for me that meant, would I include a certain 7 words in the essay I was writing then? And those 7 words were, I had been molested as a child. I don't believe in coincidences. I thought there was a reason why I couldn't let go of that sentence, just as I was trying to write my true story for the first time, but I didn't know what it was then. Getting to the point where I could consider putting those 7 words on paper had in fact taken me a lifetime. I'd had some bad starts too. In 1989, when I was 32, I confided this secret to my best friend, who in turn revealed to me that she had been raped at one point, and that had triggered memories also. Unfortunately, within the year, her own secret bleeding into her psyche, my friend, 26, took her life. Soon after, I made another attempt at disclosure, confiding in a new boyfriend who seemed to love and accept me, despite the stained soul that I sometimes saw in the mirror. But he betrayed me, he cheated on me, and when I tried to move out, he tried to blackmail me with my secret. To my shock, he sent a postcard, yes, an actual postcard, to my office at Time Inc., announcing a meeting of sexual abuse survivors at my apartment in Manhattan. The so-called invitation, he threatened, would also be mailed to my entire family, outing me as a victim, unless I agreed to move back in with him. Not a great plan, in any case. It got worse. As my ex's bluster turned into a death threat, I had to make a decision about what to do. I'd been good at many things in my life, but standing up for myself had not been one of them. This time, though, I overcame the fear, stood my ground, and took him on, starting with getting a police order of protection. He flinched and eventually disappeared. But once again, I was alone with my secret, which now proved too much for me. I made an appointment with a psychotherapist who I'd seen actually when I was coming out from the gay closet. And for several appointments, I went dutifully to his office, but I couldn't answer his question, why are you here? It was much easier when I was younger, and he said, why are you here? Well, I think I'm gay. So finally, this is what I wrote down and then read out loud to him. As much as I've tried, I can't actually say this to you. I can't say it without reading the words from the paper. I'm afraid to read this. I'm afraid to tell you this because in telling you the story, it will become real. But I need to become real. I'm ready. I read to him the details of what my paternal grandfather did to me as a young boy, ending with, I don't know where all of that fear went. It just stayed inside of me. I buried it that quickly and that perfectly. Over the years after that, I continued in therapy and made quiet disclosures to a few of my closest friends. Still, I had dreams, terrible ones sometimes, like the one in which my 8-year-old self was in a class and my grandfather entered the room seeking a new victim. In the dream, he chose my real-life friend Charlotte, who said, no, I won't go with you. But when my turn came, no such words came from me, reminding me of the hauntingly accusatory saying, there are no victims, only volunteers. Obviously, I still thought it was my fault. Over 2 decades, I talked to those friends about revealing more, but I wasn't sure why. My grandfather was dead, I was married. I didn't feel as though I needed anything from anyone. Until recently, that is, when I realized I actually did need something, when it suddenly seemed wrong not to disclose the truth. Maybe it was actress Ellen Page's coming out statement. She said, I am tired of lying by omission. Or Dylan Farrow's accusation of sexual abuse against Woody Allen, which he has denied. I'd previously come out about being gay, and I've talked about having had cancer. Shedding a skin has always made a positive difference in how I felt about myself and in deepening my relationships. My friend and confidant, Amy, wrote me, you're tired of holding your secret. You want it to come out, and you'll deal with whatever fallout there may be. It's time. So I told my sister, my brother, both of whom instinctively supported me. Finally, I went to see my parents, both in their 80s and not in the best of health. I thought about this conversation 100 times, but this was no dress rehearsal. And unable to tamp down the fear lodged in my throat, I decided I just had to step over it and tell my story. And when I finished, my mom, a retired psychiatric social worker, put on her professional hat and said, sexual abuse is all too common and hidden away. And then she took that hat off and said, and told me for the first time, she had been abused as a child. Unlike many others who reveal their secret, I was fortunate. Neither my mother nor my father disputed what I was saying. In fact, it all seemed to ring true to them. And Mom even added other bits to the narrative. For example, she wondered aloud why my late grandmother had become apoplectic every time my grandfather came to visit us. She thought my grandmother had been controlling. Now she wondered if my grandmother was trying to protect us. Despite my many rehearsals for this moment, this drama played out in a way I had never imagined. The healing power of my family's love and support was immediately tangible. Of course, I wondered whether my grandfather had sexually assaulted anyone else, but that's a question for another day. As I've continued to tell others since then, I've been healed in ways I hadn't hoped for. My friend Peter sent me an email reading in part, life seems to be a continual act of coming out, doesn't it? The boundaries we think are uncrossable, the unnameable corners of our soul that we live in fear of bringing to light, are the very regions that allow us to feel complete if we dare to explore them. So thank you for crossing borders, shining a light into those corners. They only make you more lovable, more admirable. I don't quote Peter to suggest that I am more lovable or more admirable now, but to remind myself of this truth, to paraphrase James Joyce from Ulysses, our secrets sit silent in the dark recesses of our hearts, but even they weary of their tyranny, willing and wanting to be dethroned. Or as Amy said, it was simply time. Thank you.